Hi, and welcome. I'm the Apologician. The first project we're going to tackle is going to be a challenge raised by Hemant Mehta, the Friendly Atheist. His YouTube channel is called The Atheist Voice. And in one of his videos, he offers this challenge, 78 questions for Christians. Now, I want to try to keep these videos to a manageable length, so I'll only be able to give a response to maybe 1 to 5 questions maximum per video. Just because sometimes when he raises a question, it may be only a one-sentence question, but it doesn't require a one-sentence answer. Sometimes he asks questions that have a lot of concepts built into them, or are raising a certain question about a Christian belief. And so in order to respond to them properly, I actually have to deal with the content and explain some context, so the person who's watching the video can understand what's the background behind his question. What is either the doctrine he's attacking or the concept that he's questioning, and we'll have to deal with that in a little bit more of a comprehensive way. Now, before we do this, I want to make sure I'm specifying a few things for you. There are many times in the questionnaire where Hemant uses what's called a question with a built-in assumption. In other words, he'll raise a question, but he has one of his own ideas attached to that question. So in order to respond to it, I have to first lay bare that assumption. In other words, expose it for what it is, and then deal with the content of his question. One example of a built-in assumption question is something like, have you stopped beating your wife? The very question assumes that you do beat your wife. Now, for a man who doesn't beat his wife, this would be a very awkward question to be asked. So what he has to first do is say, I don't beat my wife. This question is not very well worded. Or this question has a false premise. Many times, Hemant does that with his questionnaire. So I'll have to do that by dealing with the assumption first and then deal with the content of the question. The other thing that I want to mention is that sometimes Hemant uses questions about the Christian faith that are not derived from true, accurate biblical study. In other words, he grabs ideas or concepts that are really not part of biblical orthodoxy. He maybe hears of a teacher or somebody from a denomination that is definitely not biblically conservative, let's put it that way. And then he brings these ideas to the forefront and then expects Christians, all Christians, to account for these teachings. Well, sometimes I may have to specify this is not a teaching that actually derives from an orthodox, hermeneutically sound interpretation of the Bible. These are teaching concepts that are either from a teacher who is not well informed, or maybe some hearsay that's been spread around on YouTube, or maybe possibly one of Hemant's own encounters with a Christian. And there are times where I'll have to sift between what is a concept that's a really biblical one that I have to explain, and one that is a radical fringe idea that really no biblical evangelical Christian would hold to. So there are times where he's grabbing ideas that are way out from left field and then he's asking all Christians to account for it, so I will have to explain that as well. Thirdly, there are times where he does carry assumptions that are just simply false. In other words, he's grabbing caricatures of the Christian faith, or he's grabbing ideas that maybe he has made up in his own mind, or he's been influenced by other atheist thinkers, and then using that as the basis to attack a Christian worldview. So there are times where I'll have to separate when he's actually giving us a challenge that's legitimate, or when it's based on just hearsay or false information. So, and again, I plan on dealing with those one at a time and explaining the concepts behind it, but there are times where I have to correct an error in his thinking first before I can deal with the question and give a more comprehensive response. So, without further ado, in the next video we'll launch straight into these questions. God bless and take care.